Hi, Russell Davis here from MBA Link. As the former Associate Director of Admissions at Duke University's Fuqua School of Business, I have seen thousands of MBA applications. I've seen some really great ones, and I've seen some not so great ones. Now, in many of those unsuccessful applications, I did see some solid profiles, but the applicant just couldn't make a strong enough case to the admissions committee. In this series of video blogs, I will be sharing some tips and advice helping you understand the MBA application process and giving you that insight into what makes a really strong and compelling MBA application. Today's topic, we're going to talk about engaging with admissions offices and admissions officers. Over the course of your application process, you are going to find yourself in a number of situations potentially where you're going to be connecting with a school through their admissions office and maybe even in person with an admissions office. First and foremost, you always want to be very respectful and appreciative. It's very important to remember that any person within an admissions office, or even the school for that matter, can have input on your application. When you arrive for a campus visit, for example, you're going to be greeted by potentially some students who are working for the admissions office, or maybe you'll be greeted by somebody who works for the admissions office. I have seen in the past where this is not going to surprise you, that maybe parking isn't always the ideal situation at a school. Maybe it was a little cumbersome, the process. Maybe you had to park, you walked into the admissions office, you got a parking permit, and then they sent you back out to your car to put that parking permit. Maybe it was hot out. Maybe you were a little cranky after that. So you walk back in, and maybe you just make a side little comment, well, that was a little bit inconvenient. Well, that's a pretty powerful statement to make in front of somebody who works in an admissions office, because they might walk away saying, well, that person was a little bit rude. So my point of sharing that story with you is you always want to remember that anything you say, any interaction you have, can potentially have an impact on your application. Many schools provide mechanisms or processes that allows anybody within not just the admissions office, but within the school and the community to provide feedback on an applicant. You want to make sure that any feedback that ever gets provided about you is always positive. That feedback can very easily find its way back into your application once you submit it. If someone takes the time to write a really positive note about you and their interactions with you, that can be pretty powerful. And if that note makes it into your application, when the application readers and the committee is looking at it, they're going to go, wow, this person left a pretty positive impression. But on the other hand, if you leave a negative impression, that can be a pretty difficult thing to overcome. So always be sensitive, be aware of every interaction that you have with anybody within a school. And that includes not just the admissions office or the students working for the admissions office, but anybody else that you might come into contact while you're on that campus visit. Let me share a couple tips about how you can leave a positive or potentially a negative impact when you are visiting campus. Oftentimes during a campus visit program, you will be given the opportunity to sit in and visit a class and do what they call is a class observation. Well, remember, the key word there is observation. I would be surprised that how often we'd have students come back to our office when I was working in the admissions office and share how one of the visitors felt compelled to be one of the most active participants in the class discussion. If you are not invited to participate in the class discussion, my advice is don't participate in the class discussion. Admissions committees put a lot of value on self-awareness, and when you do things like that, it demonstrates to them that you might lack a little bit in self-awareness. Over the course of your application, you will probably be wanting to reach out to other members of the community. You may reach out to a faculty member, or you might reach out to the Career Services office. Don't be surprised if you don't get a response from them. In both cases, the faculty are focused on teaching their students, and the Career Services Department, I can promise you, is putting all of their energy into helping their current students. It's okay to reach out, but if you don't get a response, be okay with it. You don't need to send any follow-up notes. Connecting with the admissions office is a great way to get questions answered, and you may even develop a relationship with somebody who works in the admissions office, which is always a great thing to do. You just have to remember that any interaction you have can potentially have an impact, good or bad, on your application status. You'll hear me say this over and over again. Anytime you come into contact with anybody in the application process, a great habit to get into is make sure you always send those thank you notes. The MBA application process is an exercise in self-reflection and discovery. Let MBA Link tell you why you deserve a top MBA program, and let us show you how to put together a great and successful MBA application. If you're interested in getting more of my tips or would like to connect with me, visit us at mymbalink.com. Good luck as you continue to pursue your MBA dreams.